John, David Kozowski, Funnel Cake Sports Radio. Pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining us tonight. When Chris told me that you were going to be on tonight, I was pretty excited. Other than possibly the New England Patriots, no team has been talked about more this offseason than the Denver Broncos, and at least you're doing it for football reasons. They're kind of the classy, the pick right now for a lot of the pundits to not only make the Super Bowl but to win the Super Bowl. How do you see this team shaping up this season? Do they have what it takes, and do they risk being the team that you know the Washington Redskins for all those years, the paper champs in the preseason? Can they pull it off?
I can see why they're viewed as one of the top teams, especially with Hernandez getting arrested and Gronkowski dealing with injuries in New England. But at the same time, because they're being hyped up so much by the media, they have the potential to be one of the biggest disappointments because, like you said, they're expected to go really far and even expected by a lot of people to win it all. So if they do, it'll be like, okay, that's great. You're expected to do that. And if they don't, it'll be a big disappointment. They'll be one of the biggest disappointments. But I don't think that'll happen. I think it'll be easy for them to win their division, and I think they can get home field advantage in the playoffs. And I could see them coasting at least to the AFC Championship game because they have a lot of pieces together now.
Do you think that the expectations and the amplitude that is going into their season with being able to play the Raiders and the Chargers both twice in the same year, every year, kind of knocks that up a little bit more? Or does that not even play into it? Is it more on the same level of the other AFC elite teams that everybody's looking at?
Are you talking about why the expectations are high for them?
Correct. As far as their record would go, I mean, they do get to play the Raiders twice. They do get to play the Chargers twice. I'm not saying the Chargers are a terrible team, but they're not that great. So they do get those 4 games in their 16-game schedule, but they're going to have other competition in the AFC. If they don't come out of the gate immediately and knock off a bunch of these teams, is it going to be disappointing?
Oh, yeah, it'll be big disappointment. I don't foresee them not knocking off a bunch of teams right away. I think they ended that season so hot, and they have the regular season so hot, and then the playoffs just a few bad plays away from barely losing the game in overtime, so they're going to come into the season with a sour taste in their mouth. They're opening the season against the Ravens, who barely beat them in the playoffs. They're gonna want to smash them, and if they do, or if they even beat them, they're just going to have a momentum to just let it carry on throughout the whole season.
Let's talk about Von Miller real quick here. How much is that going to affect them if he does end up getting suspended for 4 games, basically being the heart and soul of that defense now that Elvis Dumervil is gone? Will it affect them enough on defense, or will everybody else be able to pick it up and help them win games?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to comment on that because the details about his suspension are unknown. It's not even known why he was suspended. And the Broncos and Miller both seem kind of confident that at the very least his suspension will get reduced. But even if it doesn't get reduced and he is suspended for 4 games, I don't think it'll set them back too far because they signed Sean Phillips earlier in the offseason. He had 9.5 sacks with the Chargers last year as an outside linebacker. The Broncos know firsthand from playing him for 9 years what he can do as an outside linebacker, and they were excited when they signed him well before Miller was suspended. Right away they said people were projecting him as the defensive end, and Elway and Fox were like, no, he's going to be our backup Sam outside linebacker to Von Miller. We really like what he can do, and we view him as a player very similar to Miller. So I think that Sean Phillips, and they got a rookie, Quantarius Smith, who can also rush the passer very well. I think they'll both step up, and Miller will obviously be missed, but I don't think enough that they'll go any worse than 3-1 to open the season.
Jon Heath with Jon Heath .net. John, a quick question for you. Every team in the NFL right now lives and dies by their starting quarterback. Denver Broncos probably a little bit more so with Peyton Manning. How do you see that offensive line shaking up? Is this something that they're going to be able to keep their offensive line together to keep Peyton Manning upright? Is he going to be able to make it through the entire season? He's had the neck concerns in the past. Outstanding season, obviously, last year where he battled neck and neck for comeback player of the year and MVP. Is this? They just signed. I'm gonna butcher the name here. Ryan, is it Lidja? Yeah, this is. I'm looking at your.
It's Lidja.
Is this something that they're going to be able to keep the offensive line strong enough or healthy enough to keep Peyton Manning on his feet?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too big of a problem. I think Dan Copen's injury was
the old technical difficulties bug.
And that's what happens in life.
Yeah. You know what? It makes me feel better knowing that it happens in live radio to everybody.
Can we just
The point was that Lidja's a veteran guy. He allowed like 3 sacks last year playing center for the Chiefs. He played with Indy in Indianapolis. He played with Manning in Indianapolis, and he will compete with Manny Ramirez to win the starting job. And I think he'll be fine at center. And across the rest of the offensive line, I think they have basically the same 4 returning starters. And last year, Manning was only sacked, I believe, like 21 times, which I believe was second best in the NFL behind only the Giants. So I don't think the offensive line would be a big problem for them unless there's like additional injuries to who they have just brought in.
John, this is the Nighthawk, as I am known to the ladies. Not really. I just had a couple questions for you. First of all, are you a big enough Broncos fan that you own the brown throwback jersey from a couple years ago? And second of all...
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Are you a big enough Broncos fan that you own the brown throwback jersey from about 2 or 3 years ago? I was just at the Packers Pro Shop yesterday, and I was looking at their navy blue uniforms from a couple of years ago. They amazingly still have lots of those in stock. So I figured maybe you're a big enough Broncos fan. You had the brown ones, because I thought those at least looked pretty interesting. I don't know about you.
I don't have a brown jersey, but I do have those throwback yellow and brown striped socks.
Oh, very
Excellent.
nice.
I wear those every year on Christmas.
Excellent.
Very cool. Well, then my actual real fan question, not to make you retread over painful ground here, but what the heck happened with the Doomerville thing? I mean, I kind of remember a little bit about it, but it was in the middle of the basketball and the hockey season and all that stuff. So I like some others might not have been 1,000% focused on what happened there.
I believe, if my memory serves me right, he was owed like $12.5 million or something going into the season, and the Broncos were like, "Look, you only had so many sacks last year. Von Miller is our new star. We're not going to be paying you that much money." He was like one of the top five highest paid players on the roster going into the season, and they just wanted to reduce his salary, and him and his agent wanted to restructure it so he'd get the same amount of money. It would just count against the cap in different periods over the course of his contract. And apparently it sounds like they just butted heads and were at a stalemate until like the last second, or at least the last few days. And then by the time they got it worked out, and by the time Doomerville's agent submitted the contract via fax, which doesn't make any sense with all the technology there is today, that they're still using fax machines to do NFL contracts, which is millions of dollars. They did it via fax, and apparently the Broncos received it too late, and by then it couldn't go through, and they had given him a deadline that they said, "Look, he signs this contract by this time, or we're going to cut him." And the fax came, I guess, a few minutes late, and they're like, "All right, we already cut him." And then when they cut him, they made him another offer, but I think by that point, Doomerville was like, "Look, you guys don't want me that bad. If you really wanted me, I would still be in Denver." And so I think he felt kind of spurned, and he signed with Baltimore with less than what he probably could have ended up going back to Denver with, even after they cut him. I think he was just sick of this situation, and him and his agent just, like he said, he wanted a team that wanted him.
All right, just a quick follow-up question then. As someone that observes the team pretty closely, obviously there was some negative attention brought on the Broncos with the 2 OWIs. I actually have a friend professionally who is a police officer out in the Colorado area. And I guess, just kind of my question is, between some of the goofiness that happened with this fax and all this stuff with Doomerville, and then kind of a couple of executives having a bit of a brush. I mean, is there any concern among the fan base? I realize John Elway probably has quite a lot of gravitas, and short of defacing a Colorado state flag, he's probably okay. But has there been any question from the fan base in terms of kind of what's going on upstairs?
There may be some of that in the fan base, but I don't think it should be a major concern in the fan base because, I mean, the executives made some stupid decisions, but they're obviously not going to do that again. And if they do, right away they'll be fired. And as the facts thing is just part of the business. Like, the NFL is a business, and things like that happen. It was just the fact that it was a fax machine and the Broncos are playing hardball with them. I think it got blown out of proportion, but contract negotiations like that happen with every team every offseason. So I don't think there's a big problem in the Broncos front office. I just think it's coincidental that this offseason a couple of things have gone back to back to back, and everybody's just kind of like scratching their heads, like, why is this happening in Denver? I think it's merely coincidental, and I don't think it should be a big concern going forward.
Jon Heath with Jon Heath Sports Media. You can follow him on jonheath.net. That's John, Jon, no H in that. One more question for you, John. Was looking over their schedule, and even with the loss of a Von Miller for the first 4 weeks, you start off with the Ravens, who are a shell of the team that really what they were for their Super Bowl run. You go on, you play at the Giants, and then you have a home game, 2 home games, the Raiders and Eagles. Neither team that I'm expecting much from this year. The Eagles can be a bit of a wild card, but going down the schedule, trying to be unbiased, I actually count this up as being about a 14-win team. Who do you see when you look over? We talked about earlier. I think anything less than at minimum an AFC championship berth and likely a Super Bowl berth. Is there any team in the conference when you look over the AFC that you just say, I don't want to see them in the playoffs, whether it's in the wild card round, whether it's in the AFC championship? That is a team that may not be the best in the conference, but they just match up well against us.
Sure, yeah. The Patriots, obviously, they're not a surprise team, but playing them in Denver or New England, obviously not so much now because Gronkowski's dinged up. By the time the playoffs come, though, who knows, maybe he'll be 100%. And they lost Hernandez, but it's New England, so you know they're going to plug somebody in and just keep on chucking because it's Tom Brady. Just like in Denver with Peyton Manning, they can just plug people in and keep going on the offensive line. Peyton has a quick release, he'll make up for it. Tom Brady, he'll make new weapons in New England. So I think they play the Patriots on November 24th in Week 12 of the regular season. I think it'll have huge playoff implications in the AFC, I'm sure. And then if they meet New England again in the playoffs, whether at home or on the road, I don't think there's a tougher team for them than New England right now to match up against.
We're talking with Jon Heath at jonheath.net. John, I want to thank you a lot for coming in. Last little bit here. Give us a prediction, record-wise, where they're going to end up, who they might play in the Super Bowl if they make it that far.
I could see them going like 12-4 conservatively in the regular season, and then if they do make it to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers went back and played Denver. And
we'll look to
no more 55-10 debacles in the Super Bowl,
and we'll look for Monty Ball to be the MVP. Right? I'm kidding. I know that's a total homer thing over here, but either way, Monty Ball looks like he's going to be a decent guy. Wes Welker is there. He's going to help the Broncos beat the Patriots, hopefully.
That's been a bit of a forgotten man. We never even mentioned Wes Welker.
Yeah. So, John, again, thank you for coming on. Hopefully, we'll hear from you again maybe a little bit later in the season. We'll talk a little bit more Broncos, all right?
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. Jon Heath with jonheath.net. We'll get you his Twitter handle here in just a minute also, and get you all his information. A lot of insight from the Broncos side of things with him.
Nice looking professional website. Check it out.